Шлунная сова, Тихрен, не босится мигра, а Тихонов, профессор. Прощай.
So you want to learn the Russian language. This entails learning lots and lots and lots of words. Let me be the one to tell you what the green owl does not know. So to start with, here is one of the many ways of organizing groups of words. So for our purposes, we have a small group of core words and then the rest of the words. The rest of the words is the subject of the video, but I want to briefly cover what I think the best way is for learning this small group of core words. So to start with, we have prepositions. These are small words that show relations, like near, on, in, from above, beyond. Prepositions determine grammar case of nouns, so learn them grouped accordingly to what case they govern, and alongside a noun declension table with the same color coding for maximum convenience. Very convenient. Way to go. Pronouns. Well, there's only about 34 of them. They're at the mercy of grammar case, so there's 6 variants of each, and some of them are gendered, so then it becomes 34 times 6 times 3. A lot of pronouns. So there's no arguing about it. You're gonna need a table. One that is beautiful and outstanding. Like this one. So, for example, we have on, него, ему, его, им, нем. Or мой, моя, моё, моих, моего, моих, моих, моему, моих, моим, мою, моим, моих, моими, моем, моих, моих. How could you learn these without a table? How could it be done without a table? It can't be done. And conjunctions. Also, you'll need a table. Conjunctions. These are words for connecting sentences, like also, to, if. For them to be contextual, you need context to kind of see how they're used. So you need example sentences. But they shouldn't distract from the word, so the conjunction should be highlighted in the example sentence. So it's more comfy to look at. And just it takes an artist to make beautiful tables. And then the particles. These are short little words that add nuance to your speech. They're not so structural as they are for adding flair. So, suffice to say, there is no table for learning these words of nuance. There is a really good book, Particles in Colloquial Russian by A.N. Vasilyeva. It has all of the every particle expression in here and all the nuances they have. For example, Человек в космосе? Да ну? There's a man in space. Really? Or no, it's Человек в космосе? Да ну? There's a man in space? Really? Like, wow. Or, вот так. Or, вот это да. Вот это да. That's a good one. That's what I think is the best way for learning the core words. And so, now on to the rest of the words, the bread and butter of this video. So we have root words, for example, drug, friend. And then we have derived words, for example, дружище, buddy, подруга, girlfriend, не друг, enemy, дружить, to be friend, дружба, friendship, дружелюбный, friendly. There's at least 150,000 of these derived words, but the figure is actually unlimited because they're always being made, often subconsciously. For example, take the verb to explain. And long ago, one day, somebody just wanted an explanation. He in fact just created a new word and didn't even realize it, and no one else did either. That's because it's in everyone's mind that Asian makes a noun. So, you don't actually have to, word for word, learn these 150,000 derived words so much as to just learn the components that make them. And this is the bread and butter of the video that I want to get to. Before going any further, let's look at the parts of a word. So we have the root. This is the initial base of the word. And then we have affixes. The prefix comes before the root, and the suffix comes after. And then we have inflection. These are grammatical endings attached onto the word that don't change the meaning of the word. For example, noun declension or verb conjugation. So, for example, we could have the word let's start with the base. Nation. Народ. We could have inter. National. Между народами. So these suffixes make an adjective. These prefixes have the meaning of interconnected, between nations. Между народами. And this inflection, it could be anything. It could be международного, международному. What else is there? Yeah. международном. And so now, why study word formation? It's much easier to remember words as reoccurring components that carry meaning than to remember words as random sounds. If you can break a word into chunks that you already know, it becomes much easier to remember that word. It helps one to understand the language closer to how a native speaker does, and to more easily guess the meaning of unknown words. All these affixes that well, back to the explanation example. It's in everyone's mind that Asian makes it a noun. So if you have that, but for Russian, well, then you'd like understand Russian as a native speaker would. When one knows prefixes and suffixes, gaining vocabulary becomes exponential. From learning one root, you'll be able to deduce the meaning of any of its derivatives when you encounter them. So, if you knew all these suffixes, and you knew the word drug, and you didn't know these words, but someone said them, you would know what they meant. It's necessary for speaking freely and competently, as it's often necessary to change a word's part of speech or to use a more precise variation of a word. For example, the blue of the sky versus the blueness of the sky. Blueness just fits better. I'm not sure why. As for changing a word's part of speech, for example, plavat, to swim. But if you want to talk about the idea of swimming as a noun, you would have to say plavanie, plavanie, which was a noun. So now, let's look at some fun word formation examples. We have человек. We have человечество, humanity. We have обезьянья, ape. Обезьяничество, aping. Брат, братство, brotherhood. Общий, general. Общество, society. Богатый, rich. Богатство, wealth. Одинокий, lonely. Одиночество, loneliness. Творить, to create. Творчество, creative works. Править, to lead. Правительство, government. Упрямый, stubborn. Упрямство, stubbornness. Хулиган, hooligan. Хулиганство, hooliganism. Star, king. Царство, kingdom. Христианин, Christian. Христианство, Christianity. Язычник, pagan. Язычество, paganism. Производить, to produce. Производство, production. Хозяин, owner. Хозяйство, farming. Издать, to publish. Издательство, publishing house. Cool. And we have уши, ears. Na ush niki. Earbuds. Tea. Chai. Chainik. Teapot. To wake up. Budit. Alarm clock. Budelnik. Or education. Uchoba. Учебник. Textbook. Or окно. Window. Under. Под. Под оконник. Под оконник. Windowsill. Or колени. На on. На коленники. Knee pads. Or under again. Pod. Свеча. Candle. Подсвечник. Candle holder. На грудь. Chest. Нагрудник. Chest plate. Кофе. Кофейник. Coffee pot. Okay, so period. Across. Переходить. To go across. Transition. Переходник. Adapter. Across. Period. Okay. Переводить. To lead across. Transfer. Переводник. A coupling. Or при. Arrival. Door. Дверь. Предоверник. Doormat. The Green Owl is not teaching you words nearly as effectively as the study of word formation will. That's for sure. And now, how do we learn Russian word formation? Well, now presenting the best 3 books published by Slavica. They could have a 4th, maybe, someday. It involves learning general morphology, what changes might happen to the roots when adding an affix. For example, vowel alteration or consonant alterations. Then, learning roots and learning the isolated meanings of the affixes. As far as learning general morphology, well, this book is a good read. It's too heavy to start with. To start with, all you really need to know is Slavic consonant alteration. This is where the last consonant of a root will change or alternate with another consonant. For example, дорогой, дороже, готовить, готовлю, рассказ, расскажу, вид, вижу, человек, человеческий. That is the main thing to start with. And then, as far as learning the isolated meanings of all the affixes, well, you could just as easily go картофель, картошка, человек, человечество, учить, учитель, ночь, ночевать, рыба, рыбачить, рыбалка. The meanings that the affixes add isn't so sticky and easy to remember unless you can look back at the base word and then see how it changed in the derivative. In his book, there's only derivatives are shown as examples. And it's also, in general, a messy book full of abbreviations. But to be fair, it's only a handbook. And then, as far as learning the roots, as a means to more easily remember derivatives, well, what good is learning the roots if you're not also presented with the derivatives in question that you're trying to more easily remember? Like, okay, so You want to learn all these roots so that you'll recognize the derivatives when you see them. But where are the derivatives? What good is it? Ideally, you're presented all the roots and all the affixes, making all the derivatives for material to study from. Well, in 1985, Alexander Nikolaevich Tikhanov gave us just that in 2 monumental tomes. Presenting now the Slovo-образовательный словарь русского языка. Tikhanov is a hero. In these books is all roots and all their derivatives. For example, there's a root. Here's all its offshoot derivatives. They call a root and all its derivatives a word nest. And let me tell you, in these word nests is more tasty eggs than whatever the heck that green owl is laying. For example, let's take the word nest brat. Brat, to take. Vybrat, to choose. Выбор, a choice. Разобрать, to take apart. Разобраться, to figure out. Разборка, disassembly. Разборщик, dismantler. Собрать, to collect. Сбор, a collection. Сборка, assembly. Сборщик, assembler. Собрать, to collect. Собраться, to gather. Собрание, a gathering. Убрать, to tidy. Уборщик, a cleaner. Very good words, very useful word nest. What else is in this book? Absolutely everything. Entirety of the Russian lexicon at our fingertips, not considering the core words. For example, we have the motion verb ехать and all its derivatives. Kosmos, space. Космонавт, astronaut. Космический, космический корабль, spaceship. Любить, to love. Любовь, love. Любито, lover. In Minnesota, we're for peace and love. Мир, peace. Мирить, to make peace. These books are very useful. I know. There's a cute little elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. Where is the English translations so that we can actually study Russian using these amazing books? Well, that's exactly what I'm proposing. Good people, добрые люди, we need to add English translations to these books so that we can learn Russian using them. Okay, so we're going to work together to add English translations to the Tikhanov word formation dictionary. So, the first thing is, his monumental 2-tome set is too big of a project. But he made a smaller one for school children that's no bigger than a pen. So this is going to be the one we roll with. It's just as good for what we need. The next thing is, made a Facebook group. This is the meeting room. This is where we're gonna collect and discuss how to get this done. And I'm thinking Google Slides will be the way to go. So, open up this dictionary. Wolsby. Copying things over and adding. English translations. You can use a translator. When all is said and done, we'll get native speakers to proofread. We'll put the current letter at the top, so it'll be easier to find letters, to look up words. Now, the reason Google Slides is the way to go is because you can really, really format. You can turn on grid snap. And can really be nice and tidy in here. Just freedom of formatting. Yep, so not too much to it. We just need people to do it. All right, now back to the pig roast.